My Hero Academia Season 5 has come and gone, and after watching the season, I've learned that it made some pretty big changes when compared to the manga version. What could possibly go wrong?
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Powerful Nerdcast assemble! Stay dandy, baby. Greetings, my fellow heroes. It's time to finally address the massive elephant in the room, My Hero Academia Season 5, and all the big changes it made when compared to the manga version. But before we jump in, I would just like to ask all of you, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do so you can enjoy all of my latest videos, discussions, reviews, and all that other good stuff. Make sure to like the content, and of course, if you are subscribed, hit that bell notification icon. It's going to let you know when all of my videos are officially released. And I would also like to ask you all to check out my Patreon page. It's a great way to support this channel, and I would love to add your name to this list of amazing people that you currently see on screen. They are the super producers of Ace Guru. But let's go ahead and jump into today's discussion, which is all about My Hero Academia Season 5. And a lot of fans had some problems with this season. Let's figure out why. Firstly, for those who don't watch my Hero Academia anime reviews, the fuck's wrong with you? It's got really great content that will change your life, or at least kill 10 to 15 minutes of it. But getting back on track, the My Hero Academia anime series has been my only exposure to this franchise. I've been reviewing it since its very first season, but I've never looked at the manga version. That is, until now. A lot of my commenters who've been watching my anime-only reviews have been mentioning that they've been making some big changes to Season 5, rearranging arcs, making massive omissions, and straight up just censoring some of the bigger, gorier moments of this season. And I'm really interested to see why people are so upset about these changes. And for the first time ever, I have decided to take a dive into the My Hero Academia manga series, in particular, the story arcs which are covered in Season 5. And I took the chance to sit down, read all of it, and not only did I gain a strong appreciation for the manga version, which is both drawn and written by Kohei Horikoshi, but I'm also tempted to just straight up keep reading. But a part of me wants to just keep watching the anime version. In fact, going forward, I might just watch the anime and then read the manga right after, as I still want to be surprised when all of these big events were happening. And while a lot of people took umbrage with some of the changes which took place in Season 5, I still managed to get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But after reading a lot of these story arcs, the omissions, and the things that they changed, I totally know where people are coming from. So let's talk about some of these key differences and how things were maybe done better in the manga and maybe how things were done better in the anime, because yes, believe it or not, that did happen. So inherently, whenever a television series or a movie is adapted from a previous work, there's going to be some bumps in the road. Things will be omitted, there will be some creative liberties, and some things will just be outright different in an effort to make them more accessible for viewing audiences. And My Hero Season 5 pretty much ran with this ideology, and, well, it didn't necessarily work out.
Not a great plan.
One of the biggest changes in Season 5 is they took two story arcs and completely swapped the order of them. In the anime version, after Class 1A and 1B have their big competition, we immediately move to what is known as the Endeavor Agency arc, and then right after that we go to the Meta Liberation arc. Now in the manga version, those events are completely swapped. In fact, even in the anime version, they hint at the fact that the Meta Liberation arc actually takes place before, showing us a scene of Tomura Shigaraki standing in Deka City as he completely wrecks it and brings it to the ground. Now, while this was very ominous and crazy, it did make everything else feel a little disjointed. While I was excited to see Deku and all of his friends working alongside Endeavor, I wanted to know what the hell was going on with Tomura Shigaraki and why an entire city was destroyed. It felt like we were missing something. It's almost like they shouldn't even have shown this scene at all. But the fact of the matter is, the anime decided to make some pretty big differences with how this story was going to be told, and that's not all either. We even have the big scene of Aizawa and Present Mike as they were going to visit Kurogiri, where they learned that he was apparently created from their former classmate. Again, another scene which takes place well after the Meta Liberation arc. These events unfold in the manga version in a much more natural way, But I do know why the anime decided to do this. It's because they want to build up hype for Season 6, and the events of the Meta Liberation arc are looking like they're going to lead directly into all of that. That being said, I don't think that this was necessary. It's also in my opinion that the anime team probably felt that they needed to end the season on something a little more grander, and that's basically what the Meta Liberation arc is. That's not to say that the Endeavor Agency arc is not exciting and really cool and great progression for the main characters, but I think they just wanted to end on a more massive conflict which they felt was probably going to get people more excited. Overall, that's one of the more subtle changes here. It doesn't completely destroy the entire season, but it does make things a little more confusing. It is also worth mentioning that one of the episodes in this season, which was apparently a filler by the way, was essentially created to tie into an upcoming movie. My Hero Academia is not the only anime that is guilty of doing this. One Piece has done it, Naruto has done it, and I've never really been a big fan of it, although I do like the fact that they at least contained it to a single filler type of episode so you can skip it altogether if you don't want to see that material. But the fact of the matter is, a brand new My Hero Academia anime film coming out kind of messed with some of the plans of this season, at least for only 1 week. But let's get to one of the biggest problems of this season, and that's the Meta Liberation arc itself. After reading the manga version and comparing it to the anime, I noticed one big difference, and that's the formal introduction of the Meta Liberation Army itself and its leader, Re-Destro, who is expanded upon so much more better in the manga version. There is way more of an introduction to who he is, his organization, and their overall plan of wanting to take down the League of Villains, whereas in the anime, they basically just appear from out of nowhere with practically no fanfare whatsoever, and that's pretty much it. This is an absolute shame, as Re-Destro, I think, is actually a really interesting character, at least in the manga version anyway. They really do a great job of showing why he's so obsessed with his ideal of wanting to liberate the entire superhero society. His group and the company that he created are very different than the League of Villains. While they are certainly villainous themselves in some way, they work in the shadows and they do things under the radar. The League of Villains, on the other hand, are loud, flashy, and they want the world to know who they are. And maybe that's what the anime was trying to get across, that Re-Destro and his organization really were just blended perfectly into society, and then suddenly they just made their appearance. But it also made them seem not as important or as impactful. In the manga version, they do a great job of slowly building up to their leader, Rikiya Yotsubashi. The manga does a really great job of firmly establishing that he is a good businessman who puts on one hell of a front in order to hide his organization's secret ideals. But the manga version also takes the time to show that he is incredibly underhanded and just as villainous as Tomer Shigaraki and his goons. In fact, there's one key scene that was actually cut entirely from the anime version where one of his associates, who goes by the name of Miyashita, decides to go against Re-Destro's ideals, which is to say he doesn't like Destro's book, and this really pisses him off to the point where he outright just breaks his neck and kills him. Why this scene was cut from the anime is beyond me, but it's incredibly important in establishing the type of character that Re-Destro is. This is completely missing from the anime version, and he essentially just comes across as some rando guy who showed up out of nowhere. It takes away a lot of context of who Re-Destro really is, and I think that's one of the biggest problems of Season 5, the introduction of Re-Destro and his group. The manga version does it chapters ahead of the big event where the League of Villains are going up against Gigantomachia. It makes them feel more important. There's this foreboding feeling that these characters are about to make their presence known, whether they're going to be the next villainous group that goes alongside the League of Villains, like say the Shiai Hasaikai from the previous season, but still, it just didn't work the way that they were just sort of thrown into the anime. Going along with this, we also have the capture of Giran, another member of the League of Villains, the broker for the group. In the anime version, he's already captured, we just see it, and that's pretty much it. Again, the manga version does a much better job of showing this capture actually happening, the first meeting between Re-Destro and Giran, and of course, again, it amplifies that hype of knowing now they're going after the League of Villains, and they're going to be doing it by capturing one of their key members. Again, in the anime version, it just feels disjointed, and it feels like these events are just happening way too fast. It's a little too confusing, to be perfectly honest. It's almost as if the anime version was trying to rush through these events so that we could just finish it and wrap it up, but it completely took away from a lot of the drama and intensity of this conflict between these two groups. And that is a very big problem when you have an entire arc which is devoted to the villains themselves. It needs to feel dire, it needs to feel dangerous, and that feeling is kind of swept away in the anime version, at least when you end up reading the manga. The manga also just does a much better job of explaining what Re-Destro's company actually does, which is to say they make a lot of hero support gear, and this is sort of shown a little bit in the anime version where a lot of the people who work directly under him, his lieutenants so to speak, basically use a lot of really cool technology. But this is definitely more clear in the manga version, as they actually leak their technology out into the black market, they allow it to get used, and when it gets discovered, suddenly it gets destroyed, leaving no trace or red tape to Re-Destro and his Meta Liberation Army. Again, just establishing way more about Re-Destro and his group. There's another story arc they cut out completely from the anime version, which after reading it in the manga, infuriates me that they decided not to include it in the anime. And a lot of this is actually tied to the character of Spinner, another member of the League of Villains. Basically, he's the Lizard Man, and he's a character I've always been very interested in, just to learn a little bit more about his backstories and what his entire deal is in the first place. All we really know about him is that he's completely obsessed with Stain. That's about it. He's basically a big Stain fanboy. That's why he dresses just like him. And in the anime version, they did at least show a little bit of his backstory, but there's this whole story arc where the League of Villains have basically run out of funds. They got no more money, they gotta make it, and the only way that they can actually do this is they have to resort to stealing things. And they go up against this other villainous group, which is known as the Rejection Clan. This group of religious zealots who wear these skull masks and have a huge problem with heteromorphic heroes, or people in hero society, which is to say, people who don't look completely human. People like Spinner. And basically the League of Villains comes in here, they steal all their crap, and they absolutely just wipe this entire group out. It's action-packed, and it's also just really freaking awesome. Again, establishing how crazy and desperate the League of Villains are at this point in the series. It's a perfect segue before they end up going up against Gigantomachia and the Meta Liberation Army. Why this was cut, I have no idea, as it does a great job of expanding on every single member, in particular Spinner, who desperately is pushed to the brink in this small storyline where he realizes that they have to do something. They can't resort to this penny ante way of living anymore. If they want to make a splash in superhero society, they're gonna have to get out there and they're gonna have to draw some blood. He even gets up in Tomura Shigaraki's face about this, showing no fear at all. This is a great moment for Spinner, and it's completely omitted from the anime version. Why this decision was made is beyond me, but it was one of the worst decisions that they could have possibly done. And again, this leads directly into Gigantomachia finding them as they go in to attack him, and leading directly into the Meta Liberation battle. So that leads me to my final point here, and one of the biggest differences, and this is something that I can't blame the series entirely for, as it is something that is made for TV, but there's a lot of violence and gore which is actually removed from the anime version. And a lot of this is minimal, but some of it is really impactful. And this is also combined with Kohei Horikoshi's artwork, which I need to stress yet again, this is the first time that I've ever actually looked at the My Hero Academia manga series. It looks gorgeous. This has got some really great, super detailed artwork, and all of the action scenes, admittedly, are a lot better than the anime version. And while the anime certainly has animation, in a sense that it's moving, and it has action and voice acting and color, I really enjoyed this a lot more in the manga version, I have to admit. There's a lot of scenes here, like when you have Tomura Shigaraki battling against Re-Destro in their big final fight in the city. The detail and the gore in the manga version is just so much more visceral. Maybe it's the scene where Tomura had his fingers ripped off by Re-Destro. Maybe it's the fact that when Re-Destro uses his stress abilities and actually transforms, it looks 10 times more terrifying in the manga version. The fact of the matter is, it's gonna look different. That's just the way that it's going to be. I've always really liked the look and feel of My Hero Academia. I've always said that it's very colorful and very striking in terms of its design. But the manga version just has so much more detail when it comes to the characters, the expressions that they make, and of course, some of the action scenes. That's not to say that some of these moments are not translated perfectly to the anime. There are some scenes that I think look just as good in the anime, and even some that might even look just a little bit better. There are some key scenes in the anime and the manga that are very different, such as the backstory of Tomura Shigaraki when he kills his family with the manifestation of his quirk powers for the first time. It's way more violent in the manga version, whereas in the anime, when he touches people with his abilities, they essentially just crumble into dust. In the manga version, they're big old piles of blood and gore. Like, the scene where he actually, is about to kill his mother is way more disturbing in the manga version than it ever is in the actual anime. Now, that's not to say that some of these scenes don't look fantastic. A lot of them do, but some things are lost. Like when Tomura Shigaraki is actually being experimented on by the Mad Doctor. This scene is important because we have to see the extreme damage that Tomura is going to take during all of this experimentation, with the implication that it's going to be 4 months of non-stop pain. Whereas in the anime version, it looks like he's basically just being electrocuted. In the manga, blood spraying all over the place, there's guts everywhere, it's electricity, it's mad, it's insane, and it paints a way more horrifying picture of the transformation that Tomura is actually about to go through. The fact of the matter is, My Hero Academia Season 5 made some pretty big changes, and I don't think a lot of them were for the better. I'd even go as far as to say that Season 5, believe it or not, might be my least favorite season thus far, and that's really disappointing, as throughout the course of my entire viewing of My Hero Academia, I've managed to get hyped even more with every single season, and this one right here just felt kind of all over the place, and that could be owed to the fact that they're removing key elements of the storyline. They're moving things in a way that doesn't necessarily make any sense. It just feels a little jumbled. That being said, I still actually really enjoyed this season quite a bit, and there were a lot of moments here which I think are pretty damn legendary. But still, I really wish they could retroactively go back and put some of these things back in that were omitted directly from the manga version, maybe rearrange some of the other storylines, and maybe try to make things look a little closer to the actual manga version. But as it is, I think for those who only watch the anime, I still think they're going to get a lot of enjoyment, and overall, at the end of the day, they're not losing the bigger picture of what's going on in the series, but they are losing some of that context, and that context is really important in allowing the viewer to get sucked into the story that much more. Still, I don't think it's an absolute disaster, but your thoughts may differ, and that's what today's video is all about. Let's have a discussion about the big differences between My Hero Academia Season 5 and its manga counterpart. Were you okay with the changes? Did they just piss you right the hell off? How did you feel about this season, and what do you hope to see from the future of My Hero Academia, both in the anime and the manga version? Let's have a big discussion all about it. That's it for today, my friends. Thank you so much for watching this discussion video. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay dandy, baby.